know it's raining, so I thank you for coming out. Looks like I have some parents in the crowd. I have 4 board members, a board member's wife, and some administration, and we have a teacher representative, so that's good. Okay, so I wanted to pull the community together to kind of get us all on the same page so we understand, what we need to do to reach our vision. The vision and mission was actually written several years ago, and it's a good mission and vision. There's really no need to change it, but we just needed a plan in place to help us get to that vision, and I felt like that was a piece that was missing. So I'm going to do a lot of talking tonight. You will have the opportunity then, if you have questions, I have index cards at the end of the day. If you can put your questions on the index cards, and I'll get back to you with your contact information so that I know who to reach out to. So we'll get started. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about, why are we starting with why? And the importance of having multiple lenses. I want to talk about hindsight, where we've been. I want to talk about peripheral vision, like what's going on the sidelines that we have to pay attention to. I want to talk about depth perception. Can we judge how far we need to go? And then, of course, the foresight, having that vision to know this is what we're doing and to get there. And then, of course, what will our plan look like? And then I want to end with some school safety measures, because if we can't get number 4 where we want it to be, if kids don't feel safe in school and you don't feel safe with your kids in school, then we can't achieve number 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to end with the school safety measures. So I'm going to start out with a video clip on Start With Why. And I apologize, board members, you've seen it before, but I know you'll learn something new from it this time.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because it's easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and figures and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
So I wanted to share that clip because it brings a lot of meaning to why we exist as a school district, why we continue to do what we do every day, why public education, why not cyber, or why not homeschool, or why not, a charter. We're doing great things here, and we wanted to share that with you. Simon Sinek is actually a marketing consultant, so he writes, he also has several books out there, and one of them is called Start With Why. It's a very good book. It's not all about education, it's kind of about the world in general. So if you are a reader, I encourage you to read that book. So why do we do what we do? We care about kids. We're not in this field for any other reason except that we care about kids, and we care about their future, and we want to do what's best for them so that they can be successful in life. I mean, that is why we're here. And so that's also the reason why many businesses and many school districts have mission statements. And so this district does have a mission statement, and it's a good one, written several years ago. And so this is our mission statement. It's the acronym CF Spartans, so it's easy to remember, but we're continually focused on student preparation and readiness to achieve their next steps, whatever those next steps may be. That's what we need to do. Every time that we make a decision in this district, we have to see it through this lens. This has to be our vision and our mission of where we're going and why we're here. And so I wanted to make sure that was clear. And you have that on the top of your page, the handout sheet that you picked up when you signed in. So the district also already has a vision statement that was written several years ago. It's a good vision statement, envisioning that we are going to be preparing kids for the 21st century. We are 18 years into the 21st century. By golly, I hope that we're already doing that. We want to nurture lifelong learners. We don't stop learning when we leave here at the end of our senior year. We should be continuous learners. And to be honest, it's so much easier to learn today. Back when I was a kid, we had to go to the encyclopedias that you had on a shelf somewhere. Today you can just hop on the internet and find what you need. But we need to teach our kids to find good information, and they need to be able to filter what's good, solid information and what's trash, because there's a lot of that out there as well. So the way we find information and use that information has changed from when I was a student. And then, of course, we have student-centered learning. We want it to be all about the kids. If the kids don't want to be here, then we're not doing our job. Something's wrong. And so we want to make our classrooms fun and engaging, and we want kids to come back. Safe and supportive environment. I spoke a little bit about that earlier. It's crucial. Kids need to feel safe when they're here. Not just from active shooters or intruders, but also with their classmates. They need to know that they're cared about by their teachers. They need to know that they're not being, harassed. They need to know that they're safe. And so that's our job, to make sure that they feel safe when they're here. And then, of course, cultivating independent thinking and resourcefulness in a global society. The global society piece is so important because the world's not all about Central Fulton School District anymore, or Fulton County, or even Pennsylvania. The world is global. Technology has done that to us. We are now connected to the world, and so we have to take that in consideration when we're educating your children. So what happens if you have an organization that doesn't put their mission and vision first? You end up with an organization that kind of looks like this. You have all these initiatives, and they're all kind of going all over the place. And what we're trying to do is get our mission and vision aligned to our action plan and what we're planning to do. We can't do that without parent involvement, student involvement, school board involvement, administrator involvement, teacher involvement. Where did Amy go? There you are. Thank you for being here, by the way. So we have to get all of those stakeholders in place and aligned so that we all know where we're heading. And that's kind of the purpose of this evening, to help get the message out there, like, hey, this is where we would like to go. How are we going to get there? We'd like you to help us build that plan because you're part of the team. We can't educate your kids without your involvement. That's just best practice. So, we also know that when we look at issues, we need to look at them from many angles. We have to look at hindsight. Who are we and where have we been? Because history is important. We have to look at peripheral vision. There are things going on the sidelines sometimes, especially from the state level, that we have to pay attention to. Test scores are one of them. We are tested in multiple areas, and we have to pay attention to that, even though sometimes that gets in the way of doing what we know in our hearts we need to do. Depth perception, where do we want to go? And then, of course, having the foresight to get there. So I've divided the evening out by those 4 sections. And we also need to understand others' lenses. And I'll be honest, it's been a tough year that first year for me as a superintendent, as I'm sure it has been for this community. We have to be able to understand other people's lenses. It's not all about that tunnel vision that we only see. And so I'm hoping that as a community we can grow together and start looking at issues and problems from various angles, various lenses. And I have some pictures up here, like we need to be able to look from a bird's eye view, big picture. We need to be able to look at things up close and personal. What do we see from our regular vision? What do we see from a keyhole? Are we only focusing on one piece? Are we seeing it from multiple color lenses? Do we need to get up close and personal? Those are all lenses that we all carry, and that's part of who we are today. So I'm encouraging everybody to reach out and really to try and view issues from other lenses. I know I've certainly grown a lot in the past year in looking through other lenses, and hopefully we all have. Stakeholder involvement. I talked a little bit about this. These 6 stakeholder groups have to be involved in getting us to our vision and mission. We can't do it alone. And you can see families and community are part of that. I'm glad school board members are here this evening showing their support. I've got administrators here, we've got teachers, and I even have a few students. So thank you, students, for coming. I think I have 2. Don't I have 2? 3. I have 2 students. Okay, good. All right, so last year when I first came to Central Fulton, as you know, I feel like I'm a community member, even though I don't live in Central Fulton School District, but we're very much part of Fulton County. And so I felt like I needed to come in with a theme. And so last year we played the whole VIP theme with our staff and our students, and I know the buildings played off of that as well. And so we wanted our kids to feel like they were very important people, because they are. And so with the VIP status, we wanted to make sure that teachers knew that they needed to make sure that every kid in their classroom felt like they were the most important kid in the room. And we wanted our teachers to feel like they were the most important teacher in the school. And hopefully, and shame on us for not reaching out last year, but we want you to feel like you're the most important parent or community member in the world, because we all play a role. So this is just a little clip from the movie The Help. about being a VIP.
You were smart. You is important. You were smart. You was kind. You is important. That's so
If you haven't seen that movie, I encourage you to watch it. It's one you can watch over and over again and still like learn something new or see something new. So it's just one of those nice movies. Oops, let me back up there. Okay, so we're going to start with hindsight. Where have we been? We're going to talk a little bit about demographics, a little bit about perceptions, a little bit about student learning, our test scores, and then of course a little bit about school processes that we have in place. Data is one of those things you can spend days and days and days on data. I'm going to give you the flyby version. If you're interested in learning more about our data, want to come in sometime, I'm more than happy to sit down with you and go through that in more detail. So you're going to get a snapshot tonight. So one thing that's interesting about data, I like to use this model. It's a Victoria Bernhardt model. She's kind of a data guru, well known in the United States in education. And so a lot of times when we look at data, we only look at one piece. We only look at demographics and say, oh, you know, those students aren't showing up to school, that's why they're not doing well. Or you might have perceptions. You might have poor test scores under student learning. Or you might have a school process that's in place that you think, could be better. But what we've learned with data is you can't ever just pinpoint one reason why a student might not be achieving to their fullest potential. And so what we have to do is we have to collect all of this data and put it together and then drill down to get to this root cause so that we know how to help your child. And that's much more challenging and much more time consuming than one would think. So when we look at data, I want you to understand that we're looking at more than one piece of data when we're sharing information with you. So here's some initial data from the district. This is strictly demographics, so we're just looking at one piece. So this is last year's data. You can see our enrollment from the year prior. We've increased many students at the elementary school, a few at the middle school, and a few at the high school. Our attendance is fairly good. We're keeping up in the 90% range, so that's good. Promotion, I forgot to get that figure from you, Christina, earlier about the middle school promotion, but we do know that most of our students get promoted from one grade to the next in the elementary, just a tad lower at the high school, and I think the middle school is in the 90s as well, but I think it might be low 90s. And so our graduation rate was 85%. We know that needs to be improved. We should be graduating 100% of our students, so we have work to do. I didn't get the dropout rate either. We have a few more males than females in the district. We have 52% of our students receive free or reduced lunches in the elementary. They receive 43% free and reduced lunch in the middle and about 50% in the high school. So we know that this is an area that is poverty-stricken to a certain degree. We know that we have special education students, and this is about normal. Usually districts run anywhere between 11 and 14%, so this is normal. And then this is our English language population. You can see we have some students that their native language may not be English at the elementary school, and we don't have any there. This is last year's data, so that gives you an idea of some demographics. We actually have discipline data. So when we look at the school as a whole, we actually analyze discipline data. And so this is the data that we could spend a lot of time on. So I'm going to be quick about this, but we do track the location, and you can see that most of our discipline incidents in the middle school, high school happen in the classroom. And, well, this is the office. These are office referrals that the principals directly have written. A hallway, cafeteria, bus, and gym, and the other areas. We also look at the day of the week. We know that Wednesdays and Thursdays, I honestly thought it would be Fridays. I thought people would be like, hey, I'm out of here, it's Friday, but Wednesdays and Thursdays tend to be the hotter times for discipline. We know that afternoons are harder for kids to follow rules than mornings. The month, we know at the middle school, high school that December, January, and February are our high months. We know that we need to do something differently in those months to keep kids engaged. We also track it by gender and grade level. The red is total enrollment. We also track by teacher, which is confidential information, but we do use that as administration. We look at the offense occurrences, and when you scroll out here to see our data totals, I highlighted the hot topics there for you. You can see that we have 31 last year. We had 31 bus referrals from middle school, high school only. We had 10 for bullying. I put that in green because that was not one of our top 5. But I know it was a recent issue, and it was posted in the newspaper, so I wanted to bring that out. Disrespect or disruption, 117. That's our big trigger for kids, and we need to figure out why that's happening. Lateness to school, 148. It's a lot of kids that aren't getting up in the morning and getting here. I don't know why, I think I accidentally highlighted the 51 for not following rules. And then skipping school or skipping a class, we had 57. So we do look at data and we do use it to make sure that our school systems are better in serving kids. And we look at them to think, okay, what can we do differently? And so this is just another graph of the same thing, just a different way to look at it. So when you look at elementary data, and thanks to our assistant principals, because they were responsible for putting all this discipline data together, because that's the majority of what they do throughout the day. So kudos to Jessica and Billy. So, all right, so let's look at the elementary discipline data. So this is, Billy organized her data a little differently. And you can see at the elementary school, this would be pre-K through 5, you can see that our hot months are January and April. Here's January and April, and then October. So why is that? Spring fever in April, too closed up in January, you got Halloween months and lots of sugar in October. Got lots to consider. Scroll down here, you can see this is by grade level. We know that we have a lot of concern with some behaviors of our early childhood classrooms. You can see kindergarten last year and first grade last year, we had a lot of discipline issues. Why aren't kids, coming ready to follow rules, or things that we have to consider? What's happening in those early childhood classrooms? And I understand where they're coming from, because I used to teach early childhood. I used to be in first grade and pre-K, so I know some of the frustration in trying to help those kids get to where they need to be. When you look at the discipline offenses at the elementary, you can see that the biggest trigger, well above the others, is disruption and disrespect. Why are kids disrupting class, and why are they disrespectful? We need to figure that out. The next highest at the elementary was hitting, and the next was not following the rules. And then the fourth there that's a little bit high too is stealing. So those are issues that we're working on. Male to female. Why aren't we meeting the needs of our males? Why are males feeling the need to act out more than our females? So that's something we need to address. Maybe we need to be teaching and helping kids learn who are males differently than what we are traditionally. Discipline offenses, most of them happen in the classroom. This is bus and playground. This is surprising because this is structured time. On the bus and on the playground, kids have more room to roam, less supervision, but the classroom one is surprising. So that gives you a little insight. I think the next one is just, okay, yeah. So that's just a piece of what we look at when we look at how we're going to improve schools. And that gives you a little bit of an idea of hindsight and where we've been with data. Looking at perceptions, we took a PACE survey, which went out to all students in the county. So we have our county's PACE survey data. We have completed a staff survey to get feedback. I've interviewed staff last summer to get an idea of where we are. We send out professional development surveys to our teachers to figure out what they want, what they feel like they need help in. We also have data team meetings where teams are getting together, and we had a common place on a spreadsheet where they came in and they documented what they were learning, so that if you wanted to be in more than one group, you could certainly get on and see the information. We have Bright Lights data that's all about technology, because we know kids are growing up with technology today. It has to be part of teaching and learning, because that's who kids are today. And then, of course, we had a book study last year. I'll talk about a little bit later. And then I know at the high school they started a student senate, so they're getting the voice of students. And so let's look at our top 3 risks that came out in our PACE data. First one was parental attitudes favorable toward antisocial behavior. 51% of our students marked that as a concern. That is alarming to me. Basically that's saying that kids are saying, hey, my parents are okay if I have antisocial behavior. That's a county, that's not Central Fulton, that's county data right there. The perceived risk of drug use, 50%. Very concerning. And this one, because we're a school, is very concerning for us, and that is low commitment towards school. Why aren't kids feeling committed to schools anymore? 50% of our kids have low commitment, or not 50% of the county kids have low commitment towards school. That we need to do a better job so the kids want to be here. Bright Light survey. Our biggest gap when we took the Bright Light survey, this is a survey that we just give our staff. And it's all about technology use in the classroom. But we know we needed to have some one-to-one training for our staff, because our staff was nervous. They knew that Chromebooks were coming, we were going one-to-one, and they were nervous about how that was going to change what they do in the classroom. And that's why we're doing a Q&A after this session, so that you can get if you have questions from your parent perspective, we can certainly answer those for you. We know we needed to have more conversation about technology in the classroom management. Everything is a little different when technology comes into play. We needed to recognize teachers who were using technology well. As a matter of fact, we're starting to use some of those teachers for our professional development. Instead of us leading sessions, we actually have teachers leading some sessions to help others. And then, of course, the classroom management piece that they were worried about. We did a book study last year. Last year's book study was called Inevitable. It was all about learning in the age of empowerment. It was all about how we continue to educate kids in a similar fashion that we did 100, 200 years ago. We still have desks that all face the same direction. We still have a 180-day calendar. We still start in August or September and still end in May. We've been doing that for over 100 years. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do we continue to do what we always do? Why haven't we considered other ways? So anyway, we read a book called Inevitable, and it was really just to help open our minds and open our eyes to see education from a different lens. And so now we're going to get to the state. The state, of course, tells us that we have to have, certain things in place. We do get a Pennsylvania State of Education report from the state that condenses all of the Pennsylvania data. I already talked about the PACE survey. We take a look at SAT and ACT scores of our high school students. We take a look at some other in-house things like Study Island, DIBELS, CDTs. We do look at course grades. We take a look at students' GPAs. We talked about the Bright Lights. We have a tool called PAETEP where it will organize all of our teacher observation data so we can see what the heavy hitters are and what may not be a concern. We can see where we need to spend our time with teacher professional development and see where maybe we don't need to spend so much time. So we do take a look at that teacher observation data. We have portfolios, and then, of course, performance assessments. This is our PAE tip. I'm going to skip over that. When we look at school processes, we take a look at our curriculum, instruction, assessment, and some other organizational elements. We have curriculum maps. We have a tool called Skyward, and we're hoping to update and get our maps looking a little better using a backwards design model where we have our desired results first, then figure out how we're going to assess kids, and then the learning plan. Traditionally, we're used to starting with our learning plan. I'm going to teach this, this, and this, and then figure out how you're going to assess and figure out, oh yeah, that's right, this is the goal I wanted my kids to get to. So this is really a backwards design model. So we're going to be working on that over the next couple of years. Instructional strategies, we take our observations very seriously, and we try to find, okay, what do we have in common? What are we seeing across the board? What do we need to change? What do we need to keep? We want student engagement to be the focus of our instruction. If kids aren't engaged, most likely their minds are elsewhere and they're not learning. So we know that's very important for us to focus on. And the admin team knows that, and they do a good job of tracking student engagement. Assessments, we do, it's not all about that end of the unit test anymore. How many times do we take a test and you take one test for the whole chapter, and you might have been spot on 2 weeks ago, but 2 weeks later now you have to take the test and you've forgotten half of what you learned. So we know we need to do a better job of formative assessment, tracking it along the way, so that when a student fails at the end, we're not waiting to the end of the unit to figure out, oh, they had trouble. We're now tracking along the way so we can catch them earlier. We have benchmark tests to make sure that they're on track, and then diagnostic tests for those that, maybe may have some more serious learning problems that we can dive a little deeper and figure out what that root cause is. Some things that we've changed organizationally. We have universal pre-K in the school district, and you've had it for quite some time. Hallelujah for that, because early childhood does matter. And so we have a very strong pre-K program, top-notch, and you should be proud of that. All-day kindergarten, once again, you've had it for some time. There are still districts in Pennsylvania that have half-day kindergarten. It just amazes me. All-day K, once again, a very strong program here in the district. We have guided reading at the elementary level where we're able to meet your child's needs on their reading levels. Instead of teaching reading to the whole class, because we know everybody's on different levels, we're able to fine-tune in small groups to give your child what they need. RTI and MTSS, I know education has a lot of acronyms. This is response to intervention and instruction, and this is multi-team student support, multi-tiered student support. They keep changing the name on us. So this is at the elementary level. This is to help catch those kids and before it's too late. We do, at the high school level, have AP courses. That stands for Advanced Placement. And we actually have one for each content area. So hallelujah for that. So if you have a student that's very strong in one of the core areas, it's great to get them into an AP course. It prepares them for college like you wouldn't believe. So we highly recommend that. And then, of course, we're trying to add more electives at the middle school, high school level based on student interest. Looking ahead, this year we've added a plus period to the middle school, high school building to help those students. That's also the time when they might have a club, so they're not missing instruction. What else do you do during plus period? Remediation and enrichment. Guided math at the elementary school. We're starting to take that guided reading approach, small groups, giving kids what they need. We're trying to do that in math as well. Lots of research out there saying that it works. More math time at the middle level. We are reviewing our elementary English language arts program and materials. It's going to be time to update and upgrade those elementary materials. So we know we have that around the corner. And then, of course, our curriculum. We have to update our curriculum. So it gives you an idea of what we'll be working on. So peripheral vision, what's going on the sidelines? Because we don't want tunnel vision. PDE says, hey, your comprehensive plan's due in 2019, so we know that now. So we're planning this year so that we're ready for next. They still have the standards aligned system, and you can get on PDE's website, that's Pennsylvania Department of Education. You can get on their website and check out their standards aligned system. And then, of course, we have all these accountability measures. We have the new ESSA that replaced No Child Left Behind. We have the Future Ready Index, which is the way Pennsylvania is going to judge schools. We still have PSSAs, they didn't go away in grades 3 through 8. We have the Keystone test, the exams in literature, Algebra 1, and biology in our high school. And they're talking about adding a civics test at the state level, not done yet. And then, of course, we have a new focus on career readiness. So your child will now have a career portfolio, and our counselors have been planning for that for several years. So it's now in place and required by the state. So I'm going to this is pretty much the same. I'm going to skip over these next couple slides. Let's talk about depth perception, being able to judge distance. And so when I talk about judging distance, I'm talking about when we look at your child, we look at them from pre-K all the way through 12. So it's our job in those 13, 14 years, if your child comes to pre-K, to figure out how we're going to get them to graduate by their senior year. And so this is a visual of the CF graduate and where we would like them to be. And so you will see this hanging in our hallways now. We now have it in both of our entryways to both buildings, and it's also in the administrative office. And so you can see we want kids to leave our school career-minded, knowing what they want to do, or at least have an idea of what path they'd like to take. We'd like them to be communicators, because we know that's life. You have to be able to communicate. I know this is off the grid here a little bit, but this is a cultural learner, because we know it's a global world. We want them to be able to collaborate. So we want them to be collaborators, be able to work with others, because most jobs you're working with other people. We want them to be creators, contributors, give back to society and their communities, be a caring citizen, and be able to think critically. So this is what our goal is by the time your child graduates from high school. So that will be our focus. Notice I don't have up here good test taker. That's all I'll say about that. Foresight. How are we going to get there? And this is where we need your help. So we know we need a long-term plan, 3 to 5 years out. We know we need to put first things first. We know we need to make sure that we're prioritizing, but it's hard for us to do that without your feedback. And we know we need to figure out, okay, what steps are we going to take this year? And so it's, I already said, I think we're 18 years into the 21st century. It's modern learning, and Will Richardson is a big guru out there also that does a lot with modern learning. And if you are comfortable with education, you're not paying attention, because kids have changed. So the way that we instruct has to change. And so this is what you have as a handout. This is our map to the future. Here's our mission statement that we talked about already. We have our 4 areas that we're going to focus on. And what we did is we took our mission statement, we just broke it down into 4 chunks so that we could make it meaningful and so that we knew that we could achieve those goals. And then we came up with goals under each one. But what we don't have done is, how are we going to get there? How are we going to make sure that we're engaging teachers in professional learning? How are we going to ensure that we're expanding our STEAM opportunities for students? How are we going to make sure that we're continuing to update and improve our safety plan? And how are we going to promote citizenship? Those are just a few examples. So what I would like to do is form 4 vision teams, 1 for each one of those columns. Let me go back. So this would be 1 vision team, 2, 3, and 4. And using SMART goals, writing goals, and steps to achieve, we would like to get teams of people together to help us do that. We do need community voice. We do need parent voice. We want students on the team. We'll have board members on the team. We'll have administrators on the team, and teachers on the team. So we want 6 different stakeholder groups represented for each team. And so through all of this, though, we will have some consistency in all 4 teams. We want to think big and start small. We want to take one step at a time because we don't want to be overwhelmed. One step at a time. We want to go slow and steady. Steady is important. Doesn't mean slow and stop. We want to be slow and steady. And of course, we want to go from old school to bold school. We need to stop instructing kids the way we did 300 years ago. Kids have changed. At times we change our methods as well. And so, why are we doing that? So we can prepare kids for their future, not our past. And so, we had some new teachers, and I thought I would share this. Sorry, Amy, you're up here. You're on the next screen. We did have some new teachers that joined us this year to take that first step. And so we added Jenna Hollinshead and Erica Malott to first grade. We added Bailey Elbum to special education. We added Edie Quimby to math. Amy Klein, who's here tonight, thank you, to agricultural science. And Tim McCracken also to special ed in our middle school, high school. So we're very happy to have them part of our team and just wanted you to recognize those faces so you knew, they're a new part of the family here. So this year, our book study is all about mindset, another fascinating book. And if you notice, it's not just about school again. It's about parenting, business, schools, and relationship. And it's all about how we can help our kids fulfill their potential. It's a fascinating book. If you're a reader, once again, I highly recommend this. And so our staff is engaging in this book, and it's all about a growth mindset and how a lot of things that we say in our homes and in our schools and classrooms are actually teaching kids to have a fixed mindset. So something that we're working on. We want kids to be able to see their potential and reach. So now I want to get to the school safety and security section. We recently had an audit from a safety group out of Huntington, Pennsylvania, called Standing Stone. And Standing Stone came in and gave us a very lengthy feedback about the school's vulnerabilities and areas that we need to be careful with. And so if you notice, once again, it's all tied to our vision and mission, right here, continuing to update and improve our school safety. So we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. They talked about the 10 elements of a security program, knowing that we have to pay attention to all 10 of these areas. We have to take a look at territory, making sure that kids have a sense of belonging. If they don't feel like they have a sense of belonging, they're not going to take care of the school. So we know we need to work on that. Communications, maintenance, policy and procedure, access control. How do we manage visitors and volunteers in and out of our buildings? If we want someone to stay out, do we have methods in place to keep them out? And so those are things we have to think about. Receptivity, making sure that when emergency responders come in, that they can get to where they need to be. That's why we have, in the front of the schools, we have those red sidewalks marked off. That's for safety, but we still have people parking there for some reason. But it's a safety concern. I know it's convenient for the people parking there, but we know that they can't be there because if we had a real emergency and had to have emergency responders in there, they need that space. So that's one small thing I know we need to work on. Training for our teachers. You know, our teachers are nervous too. What do they do? When do they do it? Are they allowed to break windows? So those are things that we need to work on. Surveillance. We just added cameras to our elementary. Very nice cameras. You can see a lot. And we're going to be writing a grant soon, hoping to get some cameras for our high school parking lot area. So, foreseeability. We know that there's always potential there. And then, of course, management oversight. And so what we need to do, according to Standing Stone, that we need to make our process where we identify those vulnerabilities first. And that's what Standing Stone had done for us. They came in, spent several days with us, gave us some feedback on, hey, these are places that we noticed you were very vulnerable. So now what we're doing is getting a team together to figure out, okay, what strategies are we going to use to tackle those vulnerabilities? And what tactics are we going to use? So Standing Stone took a layered approach. They took a look, of course, at your exterior and interior. They also look at grounds and open spaces. They look at perimeter, and then of course they look at the neighborhood as well, because that does impact the way we approach. So I've broken this down by section. The first section is all about the school and neighborhood. Of course, we know we're a rural setting, but we have a small town center. We have a growing population in the town. About a third of our homes are single-family homes. We have a high poverty rate, and if you factor in all three schools, what we talked about when we were looking at demographic data earlier, you can see we're about 50%. That's pretty high. And of course, the average distance that we travel to work, because we know many people have to leave the county to work, 25.5 miles. So a lot of families may be working 8 hours, plus have a morning commute and an afternoon commute. So where are those kids? You know, they're sitters or daycare. So those are things that we have to consider when we're talking about school safety. And so when we look at perimeter and open spaces, we know that the perimeter is your first line of defense. We want it to be aesthetically pleasing. If it doesn't look like a nice place to be, people aren't going to want to be here. So we want to maintain that positive image. We know we have to look at our physical barriers, such as walls, bollards, fencing, landscaping, electronic devices, grates. And we also have to have psychological barriers, such as signs. What do our signs look like on campus? Are they inviting? Do people know where they need to go when they enter campus? Lighting. Are the signs lighted? Can you see them at night? Are sidewalks well lit? Walkways, maintenance, all of those things matter. When we look at exterior, we know that we have to look at physical and psychological deterrents to slow down intruders. When we look at interior, we want to look once again at that mission statement. And like I said earlier, we added our mission statement to both building entrances and the administrative office. And here's a picture of the elementary office. When you go in the elementary office now, you can see our mission statement right above. When you walk into middle school and high school, you'll see it, the mission statement above also. And so these are things that we found around our classrooms that we felt were positive and helping to modify behaviors. Here was a sign in one of our classrooms. And this year, one of the things that we did with all staff, they had to come up with one bold step that they were going to take to help us get to our vision. And so we had all of our staff write a goal on a footprint, and they had to hang it either on their door or their classroom as they were walking out. Administration has to do it, and guess what, board? You're going to be doing it soon too, because I bought extra of these just for you. They think that's funny, huh? But they had to do it too. So this was one that a teacher wrote that I thought, wow, that was powerful. And she wrote, this was in an elementary classroom, she wrote, take time to focus on my students' mental health. Very crucial. You know, sometimes, you know, people think of schools as just academic places, but we do so much more than academics. We are, so to speak, we are their family and their parents when they're here. And so I thought that was just very powerful that was her goal. So it's nice to know that we have caring people that focus on more than just academics. And then, of course, miscellaneous. This is just an aerial view of the alumni building because it's so close to our property. So we have to take that into consideration also when we're planning our safety plan. And so the next step then for us is to figure out what strategy and tactics we're going to use, because it's our job to make sure that we're safeguarding people first, safeguarding property, and safeguarding our reputation, because we don't want loss. And so the safety committee, we do have a safety committee. If you're interested in serving on it, we would certainly welcome more members. We started the safety committee in June. June was our first meeting, and then we had a second meeting. No, we didn't have a second meeting. We didn't have a second meeting because our plan wasn't finished yet, so we had to back it up. So our next meeting is in 2 weeks, October 9th. And so the safety committee this year, according to Standing Stone as well, they recommended that we do these things first. Get our emergency operations plan updated, update our critical incident plan, create a first-year prioritized plan addressing the concerns in our report. So we need to prioritize. So that'll be the big job of the safety committee, is trying to figure out what do we want to tackle first. And And then, of course, review and examine what we currently have in place, talking about policies that need changed, procedures that may need revised, what drills are we doing? We know we now have to have a safety drill in the first 90 days of school. The high school just had one last week when they had the lock-in drill, when we had the drug dogs here. Elementary's planning one before the 90 days are up. And we're allowed to now replace that drill with a or we're allowed to replace a fire drill with the safety drill. And then, of course, what happens when we do have an incident? Are we reacting quickly, swiftly, accurately? So that'll be the focus. And then, of course, Standing Stone recommends that we adopt a 5 C's method that we'll be talking about with our safety committee to see if that's the way they want to go. And it's when you do have an active shooter, you clear first, if you can, or you cover, or you conceal, which is completely hiding yourself. Communicate then when it's safe and appropriate to do so. And then, of course, counterattack only if you absolutely have to. And so I just put up a few of our pictures of the buildings because this is what we need to take care of. And we need to take care of the people inside of it. And there's the elementary. So once again, I invite you to join one of our vision teams. I have a sign-up sheet up here. And what I did was I listed it in 4 columns, so you can choose if you want to join just one of those vision teams or if you want to join all 4. I welcome you. I also have my business cards here in case you want to contact me. It has my email and phone number, direct line to my office. And I have index cards here if you have questions or comments or concerns that you want to make. If you want me to get back with you, please list your name, email, or phone number, how you want me to communicate with you, and I'll make sure that I get back to you with answers. So, my question to you is, what bold step will you take this year as a parent or as a community member? And so we welcome you for coming, or we thank you for coming. I'm going to turn it over now to the Chromebook Q&A. If you have questions, comments that you want to ask about our Chromebook initiative, we'll take those. Let's take a 5-minute break in case some of you don't want to stay for the Chromebook, so that'll allow you a chance to sneak out. But thank you once again for coming, and thanks for caring enough to be here. Thanks for caring about your kids and what we're doing here. So we think we're doing some great things. So, thanks.